So I went with a friend to the Billy Joe Saunders Eubank Fury Chisora weigh-in yesterday. It's actually the first time I've ever been to a weigh-in, believe it or not. So just wanted to do a bit of a video about certain things that went on behind the scenes that you may not see unless you attend these events. There was a few things that caught my eye just because they don't make the IFL TV coverage. They don't make the coverage on Box Nation. So I just thought it was worth putting down a few notes, if you like. First things first, it was held at the Empire Cinema in Leicester Square. Big cinema. I think they supposedly had sold 700 free tickets for this, but it was quite empty. It's probably 100, 200 people there from in terms of fans, and then quite a lot of boxing entourages, etc. I think the first thing that surprised me is the boxers were actually there quite early, and they were kind of weighing in themselves, unofficially, to kind of see what they were looking like before the weigh-in. It's probably about an hour and a half before it all kicked off. So, for example, Bradley Skeet got there early, stepped onto the scales, looked quite happy, and basically stayed in the cinema for the next hour. So I presume Bradley got on the scales, saw that he was on weight, and was happy with that. Billy Joe Saunders came in also very early, got on the scales, then disappeared for an hour or two. Now maybe it was that Billy Joe was totally on the weight, and just wanted to get out and have some fresh air for an hour or two. Absolutely possible. Could have also been that he was, half a pound over when he got on, and needed to go and lose some weight. I don't know, but it was just an interesting thing. It hadn't really occurred to me that fighters would be at the weigh-in pretty early, before the fans arrived, before the cameras arrived to some extent, and just be checking in on the weight. There was some. I noticed Ingram Jones from Bayloric. I noticed Cassius and Helder. So there was some big names there: Jim Rosenthal, Steve Bunce, Frank Warren, Alfie Warren, Bobby Warren. There's some reasonably big names there from the boxing world, which was nice to see. But yeah, that was, I think, the first thing that surprised me. Quite a few fighters did come in early to sort of check their weight. I think in terms of the public support, it was very much a pro-Fury, pro-Billy Joe Saunders crowd. We were sitting next to a large group who seemed to be associated with Billy Joe. I think that some of them were relatives. Tom Little was there, the heavyweight prospect. Dean Byrne was there, the Irish welterweight fighter. And perhaps that clouded our vision a bit, because these guys were very pro Billy Joe, but it really seemed to be that the crowd were big fans of Billy Joe. Eubank was getting booed a lot. I think he's one of those characters people love to hate. In the same way with Fury Chisora, a lot of people seem to be behind Tyson. It was a few sort of jibes at Chisora. And I think the one who surprised me actually was, I know they're big fan favourites, but Frank Buglioni and Bradley Skeet almost got more love than the main fighters when they were weighing in. Bradley Skeet, Frank Buglioni really were fan favourites. So that was good to see. I got an opportunity to speak briefly with Don Charles and with Frankie Gavin. Both guys seem really nice guys. Don Charles seemed like a very funny, affable guy. So yeah, it was good to meet those guys. And it was a good event to go to, actually. It just, there's so many faces you recognise from the boxing world and that sort of thing. In terms of the fighters themselves, obviously everyone looked in very good shape. I would say, I'm someone who hangs around gyms a lot, and Chris Eubank Jr. is in, quite spectacular shape. Billy Joe Saunders is in very good nick, but standing next to each other, Chris Eubank Jr. looked absolutely spectacular. Not an ounce of fat on him. Huge at the weight. He is a bigger man than Billy Joe Saunders, and it really was noticeable with them stood next to each other. Derek Chisora, really like the look of him. Real sort of thick set, but without lard. I've seen Derek fight a lot. I was at the Hay fight. I was there when he fought Hector Avila. I've seen him fight a lot on TV, and that was possibly the best I've seen him look. He wasn't too lean, he hadn't lost too much, but yeah, he really sort of thick set, real tough looking guy. I think the other one who surprised me was Frank Buglioni's opponent, Andrew Robertson. I mean, he got on the scales, and my mate thought he looked like a cruiserweight, and you know, he certainly looked massive at super middleweight. Very, very well muscled, heavy set guy for super middleweight. You know, quite hard to believe that he was weighing in at under 12 stone, and wouldn't surprise me if Andrew Robertson, who's an undefeated fighter in his own right, entered the ring tonight quite a bit heavier, because yeah, he looked like a real big guy for a super middleweight. So yeah, I mean, that was the sort of main thoughts on the fighters themselves. Obviously, Tyson Fury kept his clothes on, so it was kind of hard and deceptive to see what kind of shape he was in. We know he'd made reference to weighing in at 16 stone, and I was slightly dubious about that, but he came in at just under 19, so yeah, he's come in nice and heavy. I was worried if he'd come in too light with his height, Chisora might find him a bit easy to handle. I mean, one other thing I wanted to talk about just briefly was entourages. Billy Joe entered the cinema with 20, 30, 40 guys. Yeah, a real sort of big group of guys following him. Lots of family members, lots of other boxers. And then Chris Eubank Jr. entered with a team of 5 or 6. They'd hired one guy who was wearing Team Eubank security. You may or may not see him on any of the videos. This is the biggest guy I've ever seen in my life. His arms were the size of my waist. I mean, I've hung around a lot of gyms. Like, I've never seen anything like this guy. He must have been 25 stone. He made Derek Chisora look very small, and they were a similar height. He was like the biggest meathead looking guy I've ever seen in my life, and Chris Eubank Jr. turned up with him, turned up with Chris Eubank Sr., and as they were moving them towards the weigh-in, Sr. was trying to get this guy in under the tape for the weigh-in. Now, you were only allowed one person with you, supposedly, that's what the MC was saying. So Eubank Jr. actually went in with Ronnie Davis, he went in with Eubank Sr., and he was trying to get this this massive guy in with him. But Frank Warren was quite, you could hear Frank Warren going, no, he's not allowed in. And I think it was fair enough, because to be honest, if you turn up with a guy like that, who was that big, it is suggesting you may be there for a bit of trouble. I know he was probably there just to sort of make sure Eubank Jr. was safe if it kicked off with Saunders' entourage. But at that point, it did occur to me that it's potentially quite a dangerous situation, because, you know, for me, Eubank Jr. turning up with that guy was some sort of sign of intent. And as I say, Billy Joe's entourage, he had a huge team with his family. He had some real quite handy boxers there, as I say, Dean Byrne, Tom Little, Billy Joe's cousin, who I know is a pro boxer. And I was just hoping that it wasn't gonna, boil over 6 foot in front of me, because it looked like there were some people on that stage who could certainly handle themselves. So I thought that was interesting. I was quite surprised just how many people and how big an entourages these fighters would have. I know Floyd Mayweather, Manny Pacquiao have very big teams, but it's quite surprising how big like Chris Eubank Jr. and Billy Joe Saunders, who are big fighters but not in that level, quite surprising that their entourages are also massive, which I thought was interesting. And yeah, Fury obviously turned up with Team Fury. You had Peace Fury there, Huey, King Fury. So yeah, it was a good event. Lots of faces in boxing. Chisora looked magnificent. Andrew Robertson looked very good. Chris Eubank Jr. looked out of this world. Billy Joe Saunders, he's one of these guys who isn't a very body beautiful fighter. He's probably looking in the best shape that I've ever seen him. But if it was bodies alone, Eubank Jr. would take the fight. I'm not changing my opinion. I'm just saying that being 6 foot away from Chris Eubank Jr. was frightening the shape he was in. But yeah, thanks for watching. Let me know your thoughts if you were at the weigh-in yesterday. Appreciate the views.